Good morning, everybody. My name is Deb from Just Do Something Homestead, and today I am going to share two of my family's favorite potato recipes. This first one, oh my goodness, is cheesy potatoes. You can have it for breakfast, you can have it for lunch, you can have it for dinner. The second one is homemade French fries. If you know anything about me at all, I love potatoes. And not only that, but I grow hundreds of them. And so I could eat potatoes 3 times a day. Cheesy potatoes was a recipe that I actually created, about 25 years ago when I was trying to find a way to incorporate more ingredients into potatoes. Instead of just having fried potatoes, I wanted to do something a little bit more special. This recipe is done on your stovetop. I love to use cast iron pans. If you don't have one, you may use any type of frying pan, but we are going to use a cast iron pan for this recipe, and you're going to want it good and hot before you add those potatoes. Like many of my recipes, the ingredients are completely flexible. So I am going to use 3 medium-sized potatoes. It is just for myself and Jim. If you have a larger family, use 6 potatoes. Use bigger potatoes. It is up to you. These are just general ideas of how to make a serving size for your family. We'll start this recipe off by peeling all your potatoes. Some people peel their potatoes by going away from them. That is what my grandmother always did, but my mom taught me to go towards me. And so after you've used a potato peeler for a while, it's going to get used to how you're holding it, and that's the way it's going to peel best. Anytime I went to Grandma's and I tried to peel like this, that potato peeler simply would not work. So come up with what works best for you, and we're going to peel all these potatoes. Now when I'm finished, I'm going to take the peels and I'm going to put them in my compost pile to make more potatoes. My onion is fairly small, so I'm going to use the entire thing. What I'm going to do is peel it and then chop it up. Cut off both ends and peel it. All right, now I'm just going to chop it on up. This is 1 small onion all chopped up, and I'm going to set that aside and pull my potatoes back, and we are going to start by slicing the potatoes about 1/4 inch thick. It starts like you're making scallop potatoes. You're just going to slice your potatoes. I have sliced them. Now I'm going to slice them the long way, and then I'm going to turn it and cube them. I've cut each potato into about 4 strips, and what you're left with, it looks like French fries at this point. Now I'm going to come along and I'm going to cut the other direction, leaving me with little tiny cubes. This is what they look like at this point. They are just tiny little cubes that I have cut up, and they are soon ready to start cooking. I am going to cut the last 2 potatoes into cubes. My potatoes are all diced. It made a lot of potatoes, and now I am going to add some organic butter. I know for Jim, he always grew up using olive oil. Well, I grew up using butter. So once he has tasted it, he agrees butter is better, but it is up to you. What you want is something that is hot. It might be bacon grease, it might be butter, it might be oil. I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of butter. When I say add, I'm going to add this to my very hot cast iron pan. So don't put the butter in first and then heat up your pan. You want to heat up the pan and then add 3 tablespoons of butter, oil, or fat. I am heating up my cast iron pan. You don't need to use cast iron. I just use it because I think the food tastes better. It's easier to clean up. This is a seasoned pan. It shouldn't stick too badly. Sometimes it's a fairly new one. So sometimes if you don't get it hot enough, it will stick. But that is the secret to using cast iron. Use it hot. As my pan heats up, I'm bringing over the things that I'm going to add to it. So I have the potatoes. I have the butter that I'm going to dump in once it's warm. I have my onions, which is hard to see with the light. There you go, onions. And then paprika and salt. Now I also have a lid. Now this lid did not come with my pan, but I like using the lid to make sure that the potatoes are cooked all the way through. And of course, you need something to flip it with. All right, my pan is starting to steam because it is very, very hot. So I've turned down the burner a little and I'm going to put the butter in. Now you want that butter to spread all around. Don't worry if it starts to brown. It tastes wonderful brown. Alright, I am just making sure it's up on the sides, across the bottom. Alright, now, butter is melted. I am going to add my onions. And potatoes. Stir it around. Now I am going to sprinkle on paprika. And lastly, some pink Himalayan salt. And I'm using the fine, not the coarse. All right. And this is what it looks like from above. So I'm going to stir that all in, and I'm going to cover up my pan so that the potatoes get soft on the inside. As you can see, it is cooking very nicely. And I like to go underneath it and flip, just like that. And what you want it to do is to brown on the bottom. And so I don't stir it too much. I don't want much. So just keep going under it, just like that. At this point, I take the lid off. I start stabbing it to see if they are soft inside. These are not quite ready, so I am going to brown it a little more without the lid on. Did you notice that nothing has stuck to the bottom of my pan? That is what I mean by a well-seasoned cast iron pan. I am an old school cook. That simply means that I add a dash here and a pinch here. So the next ingredient is milk. I don't know how much milk I put in there because it depends what size pan I decide to use or how many potatoes I was cooking, maybe how many people are coming for dinner. So I have this measuring cup. It has 2 cups in there. I'm just going to pour it in until the height that we're aiming for. So pour your milk right onto your potatoes. Just like that. And let's see, once that settles, it looks like I added 1 cup of milk. And see how that milk is bubbling? That milk is going to be absorbed completely into your potatoes. This is what you want it to look like. So at this point, now that it's completely bubbling and cooking, I'm going to turn it down. The last ingredient that I add is 8 ounces of crumbled or shredded cheddar cheese. Now I have crumbles simply because I use bulk cheese, and so I keep it in the freezer, which makes it easy to just crumble it with your hand. That's why I call it crumbles. But you may easily use shredded cheese. At this point, all of that milk has been absorbed into the potatoes, and it is time to add the cheddar cheese on top. I am going to sprinkle the cheese across the top. In fact, let me turn down the burner at this point and turn it down on low. All right, and sprinkle the cheese on top of your potatoes, just like this, all across the top. All right, let's spread that out a little. And then the only thing left to do is put the lid on and let the cheese melt. Now at this point, with the lid on, I shut the burner off. Don't they look amazing? Most of the cheese is melted. There's still a little more to go. When I originally created this recipe back in the 1990s, I was looking for a recipe that was cheesy scalloped potatoes. But that recipe took hours to make between making the scalloped potatoes and adding the cheese to it. Doing it on top of your stove is so much faster and the cleanup is easy. If you were looking for a one-pot meal right now, you could add some sliced beef sausage or some sliced ham. Either one, that will make a meal. But this is typically for us used as a side dish. Here's a little hint. If you don't eat it all for dinner, put the leftovers in the refrigerator. Tomorrow, all you need to do, put them in a frying pan, add some bacon and scrambled eggs, and cook it all together. It is amazing. All right, it is time to show you what these cheesy potatoes look like. Oh my goodness, they are so good, and I think I'm just gonna sit down and have a bowl of potatoes. Now stick along for my next recipe, which is seasoned homemade French fries. Yummy! Today, I'm going to show you how to make homemade seasoned French fries in your air fryer. They are crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. I'm going to start with 2 large baking potatoes. It is just myself and Jim, and so I'm going to make a side dish using just 2 baking potatoes, and I'm going to start by peeling them. I was blessed to find this French fry cutter last year at a thrift shop for $2. Now, I knew it was fairly old. I didn't know it was from the 1950s. And inside, it's called the Villa from England. And this one, I guarantee nobody had ever used it. It was in perfect condition. It looks and acts brand new. If you don't have a French fry cutter, all you need to do is cut your potatoes into slices and then turn them and cut the other way until they are in the shape of French fries. Once my potatoes are peeled, what I did is I sliced them in half because these guys are pretty long, and I'm going to put it into my French fryer. And the way you do that, you just open it up, and your potato is going to go in between where the French fry part comes out and the lever that pushes them through. So I'm going to put the flat side first so that the flat side comes out first. Using this is so easy. You're just going to push the handle down. Very firm. These are fresh potatoes. All right. And they come out in perfect French fry shapes. And I like them because they're not the shoestring ones. They're a little bit thicker, and that is perfect for what I'm doing. I am going to put all of my potatoes, which I have 4 pieces, in through my French fryer. This is actually called a potato chipper. Just like that. And since my French fryer is an antique, I am going to wash that completely by hand. I never ever put that in the dishwasher. Look how many French fries I got out of those 2 russet potatoes or baking potatoes. That is a lot of French fries. So right now I'm just going to push that back in a bowl, and I'm going to make the Ziploc full of spices that we are going to add to it. Each time I make these French fries, I make them a little different. It's depends how many potatoes I'm using. It depends what spices I decide to use. So the rest of these ingredients are very flexible. I start with a 1 gallon Ziploc, and I'm just simply going to pour some olive oil in there. Not tons, but enough that all of those French fries are going to get coated. At this point, I add my spices. This is where it is completely up to you what spices you choose to put in. I am going to put in garlic powder. I don't use garlic salt, but garlic powder. Then I have regular pink salt, and then I'm going to add some paprika. Now, as far as measurements, I just shake it on in there. I put mostly garlic powder because we really like the garlic powder. All right, so I start with garlic powder, and I wanted to show you, we put a lot of garlic powder in there. All right, now I'm going to add some salt. Again, we like quite a bit of salt. You can always add more while you're eating it. And then the last ingredient is paprika. Just like that. No exact science. All right, I'm going to blend them all together. And I simply blend them by mixing the oil in with the spices. Like right there is a glob of spice. I don't want that. I want that mixed into the oil. And the oil is going to take on the color of the paprika. So move it around in your fingers. Make sure it's all blended well. Now I'm going to add the French fries. Pour them in there. That. You don't want the French fries sitting out too long because they do tend to turn dark. And at this point, I am just going to use my hands, turn it over, and make sure that every single French fry is covered in spice. When I look at these French fries, I can see the oil, I can see a little spice, but I'm not seeing enough. So at this point, I am going to pour on some more spices. Yeah, as I said, we like a lot of spice. And I'll stir it up again. Oh, that looks much better. As you can see, you can definitely see the spice on your French fries. Our air fryer is one of those multi-purpose appliances so that I can bake, I can air fry, I can toast, I can broil, lots of different things. But for this one, I am going to air fry, and I'm going to put it on the rack. Now, under the rack, I have the tray, and I have covered it with aluminum foil to make cleanup much easier. And you're going to want to shake them, spread them out a little bit, and we're going to put them in the air fryer. For French fries, I have it on air fry, 400 degrees for 10 minutes, and I'm going to stir it ever so often so that all of those French fries get cooked on all sides. These have cooked for 10 minutes in the air fryer. If I take a fork, they are actually kind of soft, but I am going to cook them for another 10 minutes. And what that's going to do is it's going to make them crispy on the outside. Now, this is where you're going to want to stir them real good so that they are definitely not stuck to another one. You don't want any of them that didn't cook in between. So I'm going to stir it up real good and put it back in for 10 more minutes. The French fries are done. They are crispy on the outside. They are tender on the inside. And they are wonderfully seasoned. I hope this helped you come up with some ideas to use potatoes as a side dish. Thank you for joining us today as we learn 2 super great recipes for using potatoes. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Have a great day. Bye-bye.